Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Horizon podcast, where today we're going to be building on the conversation that we started in our last episode by looking at how UK businesses can grasp opportunities that Canada has to offer. Today, we're taking a particular interest in an opportunity that is genuinely exciting, both of today's guests, and they believe could be a fantastic opportunity for businesses based in the UK. Enjoy the show. Hello again, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm Ben Braford, and this is part two of our Grasping the Canadian Opportunities special. If you haven't already, then you can watch or listen to part one via the link in the bio, but make sure you come back to join us afterwards. As in the last episode, I'm very happy to be joined by Mark Ashton, the co-founder of Go International, and Ian Wilks, the co-founder of Bridgelantic Partnership Group, who will yet again bring their wealth of experience and knowledge in delivering contracts both in the UK and in Canada, but in also supporting businesses from the UK to deliver successful contracts in Canada itself. In the last episode, Ian and Mark did a fantastic job of painting a picture of what it is like to live and work in Canada and the opportunities that exist for international businesses. Personally, I don't think I'll forget anytime soon Ian's description of Canada as the tiger that is now awoken and is on the hunt for doing international deals. And I can't wait to hear what you both have in store for us today. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining me again. And I hope you're both doing well.
Right, thanks. Doing well, thank you.
Good, good. So jumping straight in then, I think, as I mentioned right at the beginning, there is one opportunity that you've both got very excited about at the moment, and that is the gap when it comes to training, coordinating, and cleaning transport spillages in Canada. So before we get kind of too deep into specifics of that opportunity, can you just provide us some context and background, starting with you, Ian? I'm thinking about describing how these spillages occur and the frequency of them, the current market in terms of dealing and cleaning these spillages, and ultimately who bears the responsibilities and the costs for ensuring that these spillages are correctly cleaned and rectified.
Absolutely. So, Ben, you've set the stage really well. I'll bring the backdrop on that stage into some sharp focus. So, what if I told you there is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity unfolding daily across Canada, and UK companies with the relevant technical experience is uniquely qualified to enter this market and achieve substantial financial success? And so we're going to get into some of that details on this opportunity right now. But first, a little bit of context. So Canada is a nation of immense geographical proportions, with its vast geography spanning almost 8,000 kilometers from east to west and almost 5,000 kilometers from north to south. If you were to travel what they say coast to coast to coast, it's about 12,500 kilometers. It's a big country, 27 times bigger than the UK, with terrain that is mountains, prairies that are just incredibly vast. In the prairies, for example, there's a common joke that they say that you can see your dog running away for 3 days. It's a vast country, and what's interesting the vastness, it provides it has an abundance of extraordinary resources on a huge scale. Energy, oil and gas, LNG. Canada is the third largest producer of LNG and gas for the world. We produce uranium, hydroelectric services, minerals, metals, gold, copper, nickel, potash, which you need for fertilizer. The list is almost endless in terms of the resources that Canada's got, which the world needs. And so it's a fantastic country to live and work. highly educated workforce, people that are very motivated, very driven to do work. And again, we're a country that respects the rule of law. And like we mentioned in our first podcast, when we do a deal, we honor the deal and we deliver, the technical services. And that's just the mentality and the mindset of Canadians. And so, within and behind that vast network of resources, we have this, what I would describe, an indispensable artery, which is Canada's reliance on road haulage. So this to move these goods and services internally and across North America, and certainly to what they say is tidal markets, to get the products and services to the tidal markets, the country relies almost entirely on the road transportation network. This is a $25 billion sector, and it essentially moves almost all of the goods and services across Canada and into the US and into the world, to the tune of about 78, 79%. It surpasses rail, which is about 22%, 23%, and air freight, which is a very small percentage, maybe 0.2, 0.3%. So this, so trucks essentially literally serves as the arteries of the nation, connecting remote communities, resource-rich regions, and major urban centers to ship and move all these goods and services that Canada's economy relies on. And so that infrastructure, the roads, the highways, is absolutely critical to the support of the economy. So there's huge amounts of across all the sectors: mining, manufacturing, power, water waste distribution, road transportation, again, oil and gas. Canada is investing hundreds of $billions into those markets and actually building and expanding the infrastructure in a way that it hasn't done before. And that's probably driven by some of the decisions that our southern cousins are making in the US in terms of putting their country first. Canada's now um, doing the same and investing heavily in all of the infrastructure. And so there's a huge need to support the road transportation network. The road transportation market is going to be growing by about 15% over the next 10 years. So more trucks will need more roads, more highways, etc., more these arterial connections to increase the capacity and meet demand across the world. And so, as you can imagine, these vehicles, these trucks, which are larger than what you've got in the UK, some of the vehicles, Ben, are two trailers. So you've got this big tractor or truck, then you have two trailers, very much like what you see in Australia, and they carry huge volumes of goods and services, and they travel day and night. And so, as you can imagine, they need a lot of support. A lot of the vehicles that are on the road break down, and there's a whole series of things that can happen, incidents that can happen, where they break down. And often, if there's a incident where there's a crash involved or some incident that impacts the vehicle, or the vehicle goes off the road, there's usually a spill, usually a diesel fuel spill or a hydraulic fuel spill, and almost certainly a cargo spill. And so what happens is that when that situation occurs, you've got a whole series of different organizations that interact. RCMP, which is the police. The priority is the driver, of course, make sure the driver is safe. And then once the driver is taken care of, then you have this vehicle on the road, often with a spill that needs attending. So you have emergency services that deal with it first. There's a crash investigation, which is part of the process. Once those guys are out of the way, you've got the towing companies, the environmental specialists, and then a whole series of technical services unfold to assess the site and then to remediate the site. The challenge we have there, and this is the size of the problem, and again, the opportunity for British companies to come in and provide complementary technical services to deal with this. The challenge is the incidents occurring more frequently. As the investment goes in, there's more trucks being bought, there's more roads being built, etc., more networks, there's more incidents, and there is insufficient capacity in the industry to deal with these issues. For example, in British Columbia alone, there's around and this might shock you, 14,600, this from government sources, 14,600 sites that happen in British Columbia. That's one of the provinces that we have, where there's been significant incidents of an oil spill or a cargo spill or some spillage, to use your term, which have not yet been cleaned up. So this has happened. They've moved the truck, the towing companies come in, move the vehicle, but the spill is still impacted the soil, the vegetation, and in some cases impacts critical public infrastructure like a water distribution system. It's imperative that when you turn your tap on, that you have clean, safe drinking water, uninterrupted, and a redundant supply of that. And you have to protect the environment, and you certainly have to protect your clean drinking water. So when you have issues or risks where these hydrocarbons, the oil and other fluids and chemicals, because these trailers carry a whole series of chemicals often, that can have an impact on a water supply, drinking water supply system. So these are very serious problems. They're happening more frequently. We've got the huge country, the investments going into further invest in the industry, so you've got more activity. They're happening day and night. They don't just happen through the day. So while you're asleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a whole series of these incidents that happen for different reasons across the country, and they need to be cleaned up. And again, there's very limited industry capacity. And so this is the opportunity. And the interesting thing is these companies, Ben, they invest heavily in insurance. So you've got big insurance companies. These are big policies for commercial claims. And the companies operating these vehicles rely on the insurance as part of their special commercials insurance policy to pay to clean up these incidents. So the money is there to clean up. And again, the last point I want to say at this stage in the introduction is not only is the funding there, but the responsibility to clean it up lies exclusively, solely with the spiller, the polluter. So if you pollute something, if your vehicle goes off the road and the saddle tanks get ruptured and there's got oil all over the road, or in the vegetation or in the water, it's your responsibility legally to clean up. And that's why they invest in all these big policies to pay to clean up and remediate those sites and to restore those sites to what they call original equivalency. I hope that gives you a little bit of context and our listeners some context.
Yeah, yeah.
The opportunity.
Yeah, it certainly does, and I suppose that that figure of 14,600 just in one province, historic spills that are yet to be cleared up. I think that's something that you kind of need to give a minute to, just let that sink in a little bit. Just the scale of that, and when you add what you're saying there, Ian, in terms of it's a growing industry. There's more trucks, lorries on the road. The infrastructure in terms of the roads, building more roads, that issue is only going to get bigger, and the gap, I suppose, and the opportunity is only going to get wider for businesses to take advantage of and become part of and be in that process, as you explain, of restoring to equivalence. I suppose on that bit, and I kind of open this up to both of you and whoever wants to take it first. You mentioned a couple of people involved there, Ian, but in that process of right, we've had a new spill, going right through to that sign off, and making sure that the environment has been correctly rectified. Who's involved in that process? How does that vary? How many people or organizations are normally involved in that?
Yeah, these spillages can be significant. They can be complex. You've got different organizations, different technical companies that are involved in the different stages. And Ben, the reason why you've got 14,600 untreated spills is because there isn't enough capacity to deal with them. You could just focus, for example, just on not on new events that are happening, which is happening right now. You could just spend your time as a company dealing with remediating those existing sites. And so these organizations that come in, that you've got towing companies, for example, we need more towing companies. You've got people that operate what they call yellow equipment. These are skid steers and excavators, where you have the trailers roll down a ravine. That's quite common. Again, we're dealing with a very different um, uh, environment than what you've got probably in the UK, where you've got mountains and literally a trailer will roll down the side of a ravine. You've got to get to it, and that can roll into a stream or even a lake. And when it does, there's a whole series of regulations that kick in, because these are high habitat, high value lakes and pristine water that has got animals in them, fish, which are covered often under, in British Columbia, for example, covered under the species at risk act. So if you impact them, this is serious stuff. So you have to get to the trailer. So you need people that come on, like people to the site who are qualified environmental biologists. They are designated under the law to guide and monitor and oversee these activities. You've got companies with experience on how to operate machinery that literally cut an access road down into the ravine, because otherwise you're going to get there, because the excavator or the crane, for example, can't reach. So you have to get to it in as best as you can, and this can take days, sometimes weeks. So these and then if you have a chemical spill, how do you clean that up at the bottom of the ravine? And so you've got environmental engineers, environmental specialists, qualified biologists. You've got fish, vegetation, wildlife specialists that come onto the site and assess the site. Again, all this is covered and paid for by the government, but also by these insurance policies that are actually enshrined in the policy. So you've got engineers, environmental scientists, towing companies. You've got government regulators that come on to make sure. They've got this term that they use called regulatory compliance verification activities. They have to verify that you are complying with the regulations for the environment. The thing I would say is that those organizations, different people, different specialities, the composition of those groups is determined by the scope of the incident. So once that call comes in to our organization, this company that we've created that provides some of the environmental remediation work, we do a quick assessment of what's happened. What is the scope of the incident? When we determine or get a pretty good idea of what's happened, we can then assemble and organize those relevant teams to come in and provide those services. The challenge again is getting those people who are available, and they're just not there. And so I'd say many of the incidents that happen, there's just insufficient technical capacity out there to respond. And so you have to clean up the vehicle best as you can, get it off the highway, do the very best you can. And then what happens? The situation waits until some point someone and coordinate all those different activities post-event have to show up and do all those things together at the same time. Getting one company to it can be a challenge, getting all those different technical teams lining up. And that's why you have this backlog of incidents, which, again, British companies with the right complementary skills could do a fantastic job, dealing with these sites. So
I think that does does a perfect job, to be honest, Ian, of highlighting the issue, why the issues occurred, but also just the scope of it and the opportunity that's there, and the amount of people in different roles should be interested and wanting to find out more about it and how they can get involved. So I suppose flipping now and looking at you two exactly, and just to kind of dig a bit deeper into how you both fit in, and we'll start with you, Mark, here based in the UK. Can you just shed a bit of light on your roles and how you can help businesses to benefit from this opportunity and to get involved in it?
So our team at Go International has been working with Ian now for a couple of years. Um, why British companies? Well, you can probably tell from Ian's accent that he isn't native Canadian. He's a native of Castleford in West Yorkshire. Been over there about 19 years, I think, Ian.
yes,
And so we are the UK end of things. So our job is, first of all, is to publicize the opportunity. That's why we're on this podcast, because we came to you. Also, to find businesses in the UK that can meet some of this demand. And when we talk about looking for businesses in the UK, we're not talking just about looking for individual businesses. But we are also talking about businesses that currently work together that cover some of the same sort of issues or have the relevant expertise that work on the kind of projects that would make them suitable to work over in Canada. And then it's about qualifying them as to their suitability, their appetite, educating them fully about the opportunity, and walking them through it and helping them to make decisions about what they want to do with this, and then basically hand-holding them through the opportunity. I think those are the principal issues from the UK side. Ian, do you want to pick up on how we then dovetail with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben, Mark's services with his team on the ground are absolutely vital for British companies. You know, these are individuals, professionals, vast experience dealing with British companies and helping them, you know, develop those businesses, etc. Meet with the companies, understand them, look at the strengths and weaknesses of the companies, and provide boots on the ground in the UK to support that British company, plan, position, do market research, and really gather critical information in the right way in order to make strategic, informed decisions for those companies to look at international markets and to expand. And the whole process, Mark and his team really understands that intimately, and a team that you can trust. So these are competent people. They know the market. They've got a phenomenal reputation in the industry for helping companies. And then, of course, we dovetail that with the opportunities over here. I find, and I get excited with when I'm working with Mark and his team and clients when we're actually focused on a particular project. So, you know, when we're positioning and planning for a project, we bring the teams together and we work with the client to help them plan and position and team and partner to go after a contract. The right project, the right size, the right scale, start off strategic, small, get your foot in the door, commit to something that you know you can deliver. And you can deliver some of this, by the way, from the UK. There's some technologies in this industry where you can actually provide technical support on a environmental incident in the road transportation sector over here in Canada. If that's a phase one site assessment, phase two site investigation using drone aerial imaging technology, for example, phase three rather, where you can actually provide some level of oversight in regards to the remediation. And then, of course, phase four, which is the restoration and taking the site to what they say is pre-disturbance or the equivalency to what it used to be. So if we break that down into great detail, and we haven't got time to get into it right now, there are certain things that you can do from the UK, and Mark and his team provide this extraordinary support in achieving that. And so, and again, I would add to that, if these companies that are involved in, you know, waste management, environmental remediation, emergency response, a whole series of all the sciences, environmental sciences, all the engineering disciplines like civil, structural, mechanical, electrical, because these incidents impact infrastructure, of course, hydrotechnical, which is the water side. We talked, you know, we mentioned structural, etc. Geomorphological, which is the river systems, and archaeological, where sometimes these incidents affect archaeological sites. There's a whole series of technical services and companies that operate right now in the UK, and when these incidents happen, Ben, in the UK, these companies who know each other already and been in business together already as partners, who work on those UK projects, they could team and pool their resources and scale their resources and come over here with Mark's support and his team to work on an assignment or a project that's just the right size, but bring in their capabilities in the way they deliver it in the UK over here, and start off small, be strategic, come along with those partners, and then you start off one step at a time. And before you know it, a year from now, 2 years from now, you've got a multi-million-dollar business. So yeah, you know, you could actually replicate those services across those companies that work together on UK incidents, and come over here and actually do the same over here and scale it and do it incrementally. Again, with Mark and his team providing that vital support on the ground in the UK.
I think that does a great job of kind of explaining the process, the involvement of you two, kind of how crucial it is having that UK reassurance and expertise, and then Ian in Canada as well. And you've listed there the amount of businesses in so many different sectors who can get involved, and the opportunities there, and they can kind of find out more. And this may be a tough question because I know it'll depend on the different businesses and the industries they're in. But one thing that businesses will be doing now, if they're sitting up, they're listening, one question they're going to have is, will I do this at the moment in the UK, but what qualifications, licenses, certifications, for example, would I need to be able to do this in Canada? So are we able to kind of shed a bit of light and reassurance, if needs be, on how businesses can take their qualifications in the UK and make them applicable so they can continue and do the work in Canada?
You want me to take that, Ben?
You go for
Yeah,
it.
it's are you the detail? Yeah.
Okay. So yes, like any country, you have to be qualified at what you do. You've got to be skilled, you have knowledge, you've got to have experience. Canada respects British standards. Not just respects, accepts British standards. Often in industries over here, the British standard is higher, believe it or not, in certain areas. So Canadian government, Canadian businesses and industry regulators understand, respect, and accept British technical standards. That's the first thing. Secondly, if there are gaps, and there can be, for example, to give you an example, the people that monitor these incidents to clean them up, remediate them, take the contaminated material to have them treated to these different sites, etc. They are called qualified environmental biologists, and they are written into the regulations. That's exactly the language that is used in the regulations. So British companies won't have that accreditation. They can get that quite quickly. So by doing an assessment of the individuals in the UK, their experience and their credentials, which Canada uh, accepts, perhaps a little bit of training, a little bit of what they say, Canadianize some of those credentials. Individuals in the UK can become qualified relatively straightforward. This is maybe a little bit of a time, maybe a test, but with the experience they've got, that really shouldn't be a problem. The second way of doing this, again, if you're we're talking about teaming and partnering. A company in the UK that's an engineering company, for example, could team with an environmental company here.
Mhm.
Now, they don't compete, they're complementary. Environmental support as engineering, they're actually complementary. But the environmental company here are already registered, they're qualified, established. And so by teaming with them, the company in the UK can come over, do the work, and the environmental company or the other relevant companies can review their work, check it, and stamp it under their accreditation, under their registration. So there are ways and means of getting through these, some of these complexities, which do exist. They do exist. There are some differences, and yes, there are certain things that people and companies in the UK have to standards they have to meet because there's some differences, but they're not insurmountable by any means. Especially if these people are really experienced, they actually find this quite enjoyable in terms of learning, how we do things over here. And again, by teaming and partnering with a company that can stamp their work, that's one way of doing it. And if they're working remotely on environmental projects, well, that's not required. And they can come over and come to a meeting, provide some, insight and advice, go back over to the UK, do some work from the UK remotely. So there's different ways and means of getting around this.
And I think that's kind of just reassuring in itself that A, you've got you two there to help businesses work out how they can fit in there, but you've also got the options, whether that's, yes, your own qualifications and experience is enough, or whether it's teaming up with someone based in Canada, whatever that may be. But there are options there, and there are options that you two can help anyone to explore. I suppose the final question from me, and we'll start with you, Mark, if that's okay, is if a business wants to find out more what would you very simply say the next steps they should be taking? And obviously, and of course, if someone is sitting on the fence, what kind of final tip would you give them to say, you know what, have a look and see whether you can get involved and how you can get involved?
So obviously you can do online research to validate what we're talking about, and there's plenty of evidence there to substantiate, particularly the things that Ian has been saying. Also, then clearly we can sit down and talk it through. We can go through it in detail. And we've got a team here, as Ian's already alluded. We're all senior people who've run businesses, been in senior positions in businesses, particularly in technical businesses. So whilst this is a very specialist area, and we wouldn't purport to be specialists in cleaning up hazardous materials in Canada, we still know our way around. We've worked in manufacturing and engineering industries and so on. But really, ultimately, the key thing is, if you're going to validate an opportunity of this magnitude, you've got to go and see it firsthand. You've got to get on a plane, go over there, and look at the opportunity. Ian and his colleagues can show you around, can introduce you to some of the key players, some of the different types of supplier that he's talking about. So much of this is going to be about A, gaining the confidence that you see it for yourselves, B, the people that you meet and the rapport that you establish with them and the trust. We can also handhold companies in terms of what is the right business model for doing this. Do they need to set up a Canadian business entity? They may or may not need to do that, but if they do, we can assist them to make that happen. So it's very much about understanding the opportunity on the ground and then working out what is the right model and the right mechanism for you.
Perfect. Ian, anything to add on that?
It's hard to add any of that because Mark has absolutely nailed it. He's no substitute for experience. Come and see the opportunity physically. Go out, go look at these incidents. You'll see it for yourself. Actually, you can go further. You don't even, even if you're just not ready to come out, you can still have a meeting with a regulator. Set up a meeting with a BC, Alberta, or a government regulator. They'll tell you a Teams meeting. What's that going to cost? And they'll tell you what happens at these events. Don't take our word for it. You can obviously research all things that Mark said, absolutely 100%, of course. Coming out, I don't think there's any way of replacing that. But in the interim, you can have meetings online and do your own research, and you will know easily, very quickly, by having these conversations, if the information we're providing here is real. It's very easy to validate what we're saying, by the way, here. And there's government sources, regulatory websites with government that will confirm or not the things that we're talking about here today. So, yeah, the process, I think, is straightforward. Again, only if you're dealing with the right people, like Mike and his team, that you can trust and have confidence in, and they will guide you through that process. And they want you to be successful. So and to do that, you need to make good decisions, and Mark and his team will help you do that. So yeah, there are often barriers to entering new markets. It can be daunting and quite scary for different people. It's a commitment of time and resources, but that often is countered by good information from good people to, as Mark said, to describe and explore the opportunity. And then once you've got the information, you can make an assessment and make a decision that, hey, we can do that over there. If we scale it just right and we team just right, we can do this, and we can find ourselves a year or two from now in a new market making good money. And there is money here, Ben. The rates are really good. The professionals, they earn about 15%, 20% more, and maybe 17% more than UK. And again, it's a market that's growing and expanding, but the capacity is not keeping up. So it's a very specific market opportunity for the right companies in the UK, with Mark and his team support, to really take advantage of this timely opportunity.
Perfect. And I think personally, no one from listening to what you both have had to say for the last half hour will doubt that there is that opportunity there. I think the biggest takeaway and the most important bit for a lot of businesses is the reassurance that you two both provided, that by accessing you both, you've got that, whether you want to call it experience, that helping hand, that reassurance, who can make this happen. And you don't necessarily have to fully go it alone, and you're not walking into Canada kind of by yourself and with no one there that you can rely on and lean on. So for me, I think that's the biggest thing for businesses on the back of this, is knowing that you two are there and that you two can help. And if anyone is interested or would like to continue the discussion with Mark and Ian, then obviously please do get in touch, and you can find their details in the bio below. But I'm sure they'd both agree, don't be afraid to get in touch and find out more. Ask them questions and see if it's the right opportunity for you. But also, I suppose, as we demonstrated in part one, if this specific opportunity isn't quite right for you, then don't be shy, because there are plenty and plenty of opportunities available for businesses across so many different sectors in Canada at the moment. Between kind of Ian and Mark, they are the people to put you and your business in the best place possible to take advantage of those opportunities. So I can't say thank you enough to both of you for joining me, not just today, but also in the last episode. So thank you very much. But always, the biggest thank you goes to you, our listener. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join us again on a future podcast. But until next time, thank you and goodbye.